Hi, Jason here, back with a second deep dive video on BacoTech. BacoTech is a workflow tool that integrates with all of your clients' ledgers, regardless of what accounting software they use, pulls it into a single helpful hub, and leave an export directly to your tax software. This week, we're going to be talking tax workflows, the common pain points we all have in tax prep, and the upside of pulling all that data into a centralized place and managing it throughout the year rather than during tax time. So here's a situation that happened to me in the last month that BacoTech solves for, I think. Sitting down with a client, we're doing 3 years of tax catch-up for him. We'd put all the accounting together, and he had access to the accounting ledgers. When it came time to sign the returns, it was big time shock. He had no idea what his taxable income was going to be, and that's because he had access to his accounting ledger, but he had no idea how that was going to translate to taxable income. Well, something that BacoTech does to help with this is you can actually pull not only your firm users, but client users into the BacoTech platform. So let's create a client user here. And let's say we want to give the owner the ability to see financial statements. You could do it either if they're in draft form or final form. Let's use the example of this guy I was just working with and say we want to give him access to those in draft form so that before I do the work of putting them into the tax return, he's signed off on them. And what that's going to allow us to do is whether it's just a single company or several consolidated groups, they can hop into the BacoTech platform as well and have full transparency, not only to what they could otherwise see in their accounting ledger, but to the tax ledger as well, that normally only we have transparency into. In the situation of this client I was just working with, that means before I even touch the tax software, I can get their blessing on the tax accounting, and I'm not leaving anything to chance. There should be no surprises. So that's the business owner. Who else would you give access to if you had this flexibility? Maybe you have, a controller that you want to pull in. Let's say client admin, and maybe they work for the White Sox. I want to dig in here, and I'm going to give them access to the White Sox stuff. I don't actually want them to be able to see the Bulls stuff, though. And I'm going to give them write access because they're actually going to do some heavy lifting because they're the controller. So this is a workflow tool for my firm to make my life easier. But if you extend stuff like this to, say, the command center, you can even assign tasks to client users. So not even just your own internal firm users. So I'm going to check this to show only those that are assigned to me. And let's see what we got in here. Okay, we got 3 transactions with the word gift in the memo. 1 transaction with the word penalty in the memo for football club. Let's pull that up and see what that is. So you click on the alert itself. Penalty assessed against team for management criticism of officiating in Sunday's game. So this one's actually tax deductible because it's not against the rules. And let's say I want to pull it out of penalties and fines with a tax adjustment so that that's clear. I can create a TJE. All right, that was September 27th. I'm going to credit penalties and fines, and I'm just going to add a debit here. Let's say, league fees, something more generic than penalties and fines, which are going to get roped in with the stuff that's not tax deductible. I can post this tax entry now, and I'm still just working out of a dialog from the command center. But when I go over to my tax reporting, that's all going to be incorporated into there. So let's dig in a bit to the nuts and bolts of what's happening behind the scenes here. So I'm now in my firm center. I'm looking specifically at the Dallas Cowboys client. And if you remember when we set up users, you could indicate whether they could see either just final financials or draft financials. You set that date on a client by client basis. So we hop in here, and right now we've got drafts through September and final financials through August. And if they can only see final financials, they're only going to see August right now. They're not even going to see any of the September data that's in progress. Now, for setting up your tax accounts, I'm going to toggle this from ERP to tax lead. That's kind of like your tax grouping. And you can drill into each of these to add kind of some additional logic for how you want the system to automatically post closing entries. I'm going to look at player signings here, for example. So BacoTech uses the vernacular, is this account tax significant? And that's to say, are there ongoing adjustments you need to make to this account for tax purposes? This is a player signings account. I'm going to say yes. Let's say that, the taxpayers say cash basis and you want to reverse the balance out of this account on an ongoing basis. I'm going to set this up to now auto reverse the entire balance and put it on the income statement somewhere. Let's say I don't know, some sort of salaries and wages expense. So now every single month, a monthly adjusting entry will be made to salaries and wages. Now, I think we set up things like this in our accounting system pretty frequently, but usually not for tax. What this lets us do is set up the rules and set up the logic that ensures that each month we've actually got a pretty solid number that we could do full-on tax planning for. Rather than simply waiting to the end of the tax year and making all those adjustments at once, we can now set up the system to move those things around month to month. And then at any given point in time, it's fairly straightforward to hop in, run the numbers for tax purposes, and do an actual projection. So these tax lead groups are what integrate directly with your tax software. And these tax lead groups are set up at the firm level and applied across all of your clients. So on the left-hand side is the lead group. On the right-hand side are the actual accounts that apply for this client. So you can imagine the ways you can use this for things like, moving half of your meals to a non-deductible account each month automatically, rather than that being something that you always have to post an adjustment for. This logic can be set up for each client, but all of these clients are leaning on a common set of these tax groupings that integrate with your tax software. So lastly, we're going to hop into the tax center and look at the actual tax reports. This is going to feel totally familiar if you've worked in virtually any, tax trial balance utility. So you can select either the entire year, or let's say we're going to do some tax planning through October. We could just say view balances through October. So you've got the standard format, your balance, your tax adjustments, and then your tax balance. You can drill into each one and you can see on a prepaid expense that adjustment that we made for player signings. It's backing that out automatically each month so that your tax balance is 0. It'll actually take it a step further. If you've set it up to auto reverse and there ever is a tax balance in there for some reason, it'll throw an alert into the command center. So this is really easy to understand. I've worked with a lot of trial balance utilities that are, either cobbled together on top of Excel or just in a totally standalone system that isn't integrated at all. This just makes sense. It's all of your standardized tax groupings with all of the client-specific accounts on the right-hand side here. And this can be one company. It can be a group of companies. And when it comes time to push that to your tax software, it's as simple as hitting export. So that all sounds great. But to me, the most important aspect of this is not the tech and what this is doing. I think it's probably just the fact that you're now more connected with your clients throughout the year than you've ever been before. Tax season stems from those once-a-year clients or those twice-a-year clients where you've got a year of work to do within a tight window of time. And so the reality is during tax season, we're not just doing taxes. We're doing a year's worth of accounting cleanup. We're doing a bunch of back and forth with the client. And then the tax return almost becomes an afterthought. So I think the interesting angle here is not just it's going to integrate with everything. It's going to push seamlessly to your tax software. I think it's that it changes the relationship you have with your client throughout the year because you're always connected to their books, always speaking into the books proactively, rather than just having that touch point at the end of the year. So that's it for this deep dive with BacoTech. If you didn't catch the previous one on BacoTech, be sure to check that out where we talk more financial reporting and consolidation. If this gets you excited, BacoTech's looking for more beta users to speak into their product and finish building out their tax integrations. So if you want to get in on the ground floor and speak into what they're building, reach out to the team at BacoTech, and hopefully this can take some of the pain out of your tax season.